didn't need more time in school to make that decision. You've met him.
Oh yes, I've met him. He is a character. But once you get to know him, he's easy to get.
Oh, he's a big softie. He doesn't show it. That's the whole problem.
Before it was over, we were best buds.
Yeah, that's what you call it, I'm sure.
Well, it's the closest I can call it.
Good.
So, oh my god. And it's going to stay this way the whole week, I think.
Yeah, I just got out of ROTC lab, dude. 3 hours out there. I was like, dude,
When you have real Friday mornings, you know the community's gonna be up, and then the sun comes out. Oh yeah. We're early.
Yes.
Did they move that class that was in here last week?
how's it going?
Did they move the class that was in here last week? Sunday, there was a teacher that was in here. She kept them up until like right at.
Oh, they got out today earlier, or like maybe 5:30 or something like that. get started in just a minute or two. Let others come on in. While we are waiting, or we're starting, I guess, some folks had some questions about maybe access to Moodle. If you have any questions that exist, I'm happy to answer any. I do, it is, so this last week, I will tell you this. There was a little issue with getting one course, getting this course set up from another course. And it took multiple tries, and finally this week I think it's in a shape that's a lot better. So if you were unable to find things last week, that might have been it. But by and large, I try to place everything on Moodle that you see in class, so PowerPoints, things like that. If we have readings, I usually post those as well. And then obviously the homework assignment type things are there as well. So you know, if you're new to Moodle or if it's a learning management system you're not so familiar with, I do try to keep it up to date as well as I can. And with announcements and some things like that. I tend to face-to-face do fewer announcements only because we meet once a week face-to-face. So it seems like I'm sending them out daily to my online section, but not as often to this one. But with that in mind, that we see each other. And so, but you may find some things there. I'm sure you probably used these or looked at these different tile type things. We'll use some of them tonight. But like, for instance, last week, market-led management. Just so you know, each chapter or each week, I typically will do some type of a kind of overview or synopsis, if you will, of kind of what we're doing with what's there. And I usually fill in kind of, again, the key takeaways and deliverables for the week. In part, I do this for sure in the online section, but I also usually do it here too. So if you miss class or if I don't forget to say something, then sometimes this could be a resource for you if you find it beneficial. But I also do make an effort to try to include PowerPoint slides and then again the different readings and things that I think might be helpful. Now in class, I often abbreviate or don't cover all of the PowerPoints that are there. I think most people would get really bored of just me talking the whole time, which I get bored of me talking the whole time. So I surmise that others do too. The other thing that sometimes I'll do is I'll combine PowerPoints together into one and just run through them. So if you see some disjointed, like, oh, I was following PowerPoints, but you didn't cover everything or whatever, that happens. But I do try to keep content on here as best as I can. Was it up to date entirely last week? Maybe not. Yeah, I mean, but it is an effort that I do try to have. Looking forward to this week's strategic marketing planning. Again, kind of what we're looking to do this week in a one-page summary. Chapter 2, the materials we cover, the reflection that we'll do, those types of things should be covered more or less on a one-pager. We have some slides and some things we'll look at today. We'll look at a couple articles as well. In class, I printed them out, but I usually try to have those there too. Okay. Again, let me know if you run into problems. If you don't see something there that should be there, please let me know. Sometimes I don't see what you see. I think it's available, but it's not. it's sometimes a work in progress. But is everything else going okay for the most part? There's like one thing though that I find it interesting every semester. We have our first class, right? And then we have our second class, and every time, every year, every semester, one of the things I ask is, okay, who still has their name tag? And I've got extras here if you don't. And I have some pens if you don't. No worries. No worries, it's good. Here we go. I've got a couple pens, so I'll just kind of put one here. They might need to circulate. Doing good. Improvise. I love it. No worries. Good. Oh, Tanner. All right. No problem. There we go. Good. All right. All is good. Okay. So what we'll do tonight is we'll spend a few minutes just reviewing the week. And talking a little bit about the reflection that we did with Starbucks, and just kind of introduce the class with kind of talk a little bit about a summary of last week. But then we'll jump right into this week's material, and again, cover the topics I think are important, that are relevant, things I think you'll value in this course and kind of what we're doing. Then we'll move on from there. A number of little things to cover. Elements that I think are important to us. So let me, I'm going to okay, it was a little delayed. I'm going to turn that off for a second. You might have also noticed on Moodle, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, I do make an effort to, it doesn't always work, but I make an effort to video the course, and I don't edit it, so it's really not very presentable. It's not pretty. It isn't pretty at all, trust me. But the audio gets picked up particularly well, and the camera does an okay job, especially if there's a video. It does an incredibly bad job if I write anything up here, but if you miss a class, if you're not here, and you want to sit for 2.5 hours and watch what happened, you can do that, generally speaking. So I just want you to know that that's available to you as a resource for you. Okay? All right. So last week, we largely talked about a couple things. I just want to highlight a few, and then we'll jump into that reflection. The role of marketing in the firm, what its purpose is, what its role is. It may seem interesting that 25, 30 years ago, 30 plus years ago-ish, the role of CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, didn't exist, or it was rare. It wasn't really a C-suite role. The person who was in charge of marketing for your organization didn't necessarily have a seat at the table with the CEO and the CFO and COO, Chief Operating Officer, and things like that. So, one of the things that may get captured is the evolution of marketing and marketing's role. One text that has been used in this class described it from going, as an evolution of going from little m to big M, where little m is very functional, where when you do marketing in that little m space, you're putting out ads, you're developing a product, you're doing things at a very functional level. You're coordinating product in the shelf in the store and things like that. When the firm moves to more of a big M emphasis, it means that the decisions that are being made in marketing are helping chart the course of the direction of the firm. At the chief operating officer, or at the C-suite level. And again, it's like an evolution that's happened slowly, but the prominence and the reliance of kind of the marketing space has grown over time. And that's one of these elements of the role of marketing in the firm. A highlight in chapter 1 deals with something called market orientation. And again, this is a theory that evolved from academics in the 1990s. And really, when we talk about an orientation, we're talking about a principle or guiding philosophy that the company has that they use to make business decisions based on. Later in the term, we'll talk about something in the last week, actually talk about something called an innovation orientation. But whenever you hear the word orientation, it typically means that this is a mindset or a philosophy that helps guide decision making. And there will be all kinds of different orientations that are here in business in particular. But the market orientation is one where we allow those market factors to help influence the decisions that we make in terms of the guiding the direction and how the company operates. You'll recall last week we talked about this thing called exchanges. And in an exchange, you had the exchange happen in the middle, and you have the firm and the customers on either side, and they come into the marketplace to satisfy each other's needs. And then broadly speaking, this was an industry if you had lots of firms put together, and then again, if you had lots of customers, this was a market. And this is the marketplace in the middle. One of the things that market orientation talks about is this idea that, number one, market orientation is multi-dimensional. So one of the things that we look at if you have a market orientation is a focus on customers. If you recall in chapter 1 when you read it, there were 2 or 3 pages that had some questions, like scale questions you could ask on a survey to measure a firm's level of market orientation. And one of the dimensions of that is a focus on the customer. Another dimension, which you might think is kind of counterintuitive, but it's a focus on competition. So this market orientation takes this whole thing into account. It takes pressures from competition in the industry and evolving trends that are happening in the market, and allows both of those to help influence decisions and decision-making processes that firms make. That's the role that it does. And so kind of one of the takeaways here is that as we move from little m to big M with the role of the firm, in a big M setting, companies are relying more on this type of orientation to flavor or color or influence what they're going to do, how they're going to operate, and those types of things. There are a couple other dimensions here, and I'll just put them down for kind of completeness, I guess. Interfunctional coordination. That's a lot of words, a lot of letters anyways. Interfunctional coordination suggests that firms are able to take information and act on information in a non-siloed way across different factions of the business, in other words. Just imagine if in marketing we find out that there's this new demand out there for a certain type of product or a certain feature in a product, that information needs to go to product developers, and it needs to go to our operations folks. It needs to go to our acquisition people and supply. It needs to be spread across the company in order for us to maybe act on that new demand or act on that pressure that's being observed in the marketplace. If that doesn't happen, if this interfunctional coordination doesn't take place, then it's not a well-oiled machine. I mentioned that last week. It's kind of like a body with all the different organs in the body, right? The brain's not talking to the heart, or the stomach's not talking to. I don't know. Stomach talks too. I guess your brain too. But anyways, the point is they all have to work together, right? For things to come out properly. these are original from the 1990-ish theory that was developed. What's been added since then is a long-term perspective of business. That's a scale that's built into the new version of this very large and cumbersome now orientation. And again, if we were going to talk at length about long-term perspective, it would involve us not worrying about our quarterly report, but more worried about a 3 to 5 year time horizon and where we want to be then and where we see our influence with customers and so forth. Short-term losses may provide long-term gains. And I think that's very difficult to operate under if we have budgets we have to meet this month or this year or whatnot, or sales figures we have to hit right away. In a marketing context, if our numbers don't look so good and we want to boost sales, we'll do a promotion, we'll lower our price, and we'll offer incentives. And we'll achieve the sales that we want to achieve in the short term, but we'll have negative effects on profit margin and image, and there's a whole lot of other things that are going to hurt us long term if we do that. But we will be safe, our jobs will be safe today. So that's really a challenge, right? I mean, it's not easy to say all this and think it's going to work and be okay. The last one that's been added, or another one that's been added, is an organizational focus on the customer. Now, so the text adds this. If you look at the actual items that are being measured to measure this thing, it looks a heck of a lot of like the items that are being used on focus for the customer. I would find it difficult to separate the two, in other words. I'm sure with enough data and enough fine-tuning you can, but remember the big three are these. Those are the originals, the big three concepts with market orientation. And again, one of the points of chapter 1, it's sort of summarized in the 6 different principles, which we did talk about in class in depth. And they relate to, again, this cultural perspective of focusing on the customer. This idea that aspects of marketing, I'm not saying the functional stuff where you put an ad out or whatever, but the kind of the essence of some of these marketing concepts are institutional. They're not held within a department, but rather nowadays, again, as we move from little m to big M, they become far more ubiquitous across the whole firm. And that's a big trend that we're seeing. I'm not here to say that marketing is the beginning and the end of the process, and I'm not even saying it's the brain of the business, but it's integral like everything else. It works together with all other functions. Okay, so chapter 1. If I were to sum up chapter 1 in a neat, nice little bow, that's what I'd probably focus on and think about. Does it make sense? Does it seem reasonable? Yeah? All right, perfect. Which brings us to this idea of Starbucks. And, all the different things going on here. I'm going to take a second. Is it okay if I clean this off? Not what you needed? For the most part? All right. Good. Starbucks. I'm really just curious to hear from you what ideas you had. So, anybody, if you were going to be the new CEO at Starbucks and you saw that there were maybe some issues, you read a couple articles that sort of just talked about their state, you saw that video, you maybe did a little other just kind of searching or whatnot. What are some of the things that you came up with that you would do day one? Yeah.
One thing I read in there was that they were taking out tables and seating areas
Okay?
to make the cafes smaller and more to-go based.
Yes.
But I would backtrack that and include more seating areas. Like, it's okay to have a to-go option, but taking away the inside option kind of defeats the purpose of Starbucks.
Fantastic. There's a space in marketing called store atmospherics. There's 3 or 4 different dimensions that you deal with, and it could relate to a physical store you walk into or any type of environment where an exchange takes place. It has to do with this is an interesting field of study if anybody's, it deals with like how the layout of the store looks, the lighting, the coloring, the sounds, the smells, the people that are there. So I don't know if you've ever walked in a store that you felt uncomfortable because people didn't look or act like you, and you're like, I don't know if this is, my place, right? All those kind of come into play. Another natural effect of this, which I don't know if any of anybody else kind of think about that?
Yeah, piggybacking on what she was saying, my thought was, the stores, when you're talking about eliminating things and making more for the people coming in, grab it and go and stuff like that, my deal would be if you have the room, actually remodeling the things, making the stores a little bigger, having almost a separate section for the grab and go, and a way that they could come in, and it kind of not completely walled off, but but having a different section, still keeping your drive-through if you want to drive through.
Okay.
But then having another section where you have your comfortable chairs, your couches, your different things like that. Because I can remember when the first Starbucks was here in Horry County.
Yeah.
I remember walking, the time you opened the door, you could smell the fresh, roasted coffee, ground coffee. It was just, and there was the chairs, the couches. It was very comfortable, and people were sitting around, they were having conversations. It was kind of like Friends, on TV. You had that kind of an atmosphere. And so...
What was the coffee shop, Common Grounds? Or wait, is that the
Central Perk.
Central Perk.
So it was that, it gave you that, that sense of wanting to stay for a while.
But being able to, in today's world, differentiate between different types of customers, because some customers may want that, but other customers, that's exactly what they don't want.
And that's the reason why you kind of have the 2 sections.
Yeah. Austin.
Yeah, I basically, that's funny that you said that, because I said the same thing, and I
Really?
said kind of like, I worded it in the context of like a double kitchen almost, like how that, like for example, like Wicked Tuna down there in Merle's Inlet, they got a cold kitchen, and then they got a hot kitchen, so that's how I kind of framed mine. And then I also enjoyed the idea of the anti-cafes that they put on that in one of the articles that I read. So I noted that at the very end of my response to say like, hey, if you're gonna allocate enough space for people to like grill and chill in there, then why, like I understand that it used to be free at one point, but we don't want to lose an entire profit off of just a section of the store for people to grill and chill. So what you want to do is find a price point that would not deter enough people away to make it worth it to go back to your old style, but you could still profit off of it if you wanted to split that kitchen up or place up.
That's good. I don't want to deviate too far away from marketing, but I'm okay to do that. Folks who,
So I didn't think about so specific things, but I was like, when I would be the CEO, I would probably look at the strategy or change the strategy, because I had in mind the theory of Michael Porter and the competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And he says like either you're a cost leader or you're a differentiator.
Right.
And I think Starbucks is not a cost leader because they're expensive, right?
Yeah.
So they have to somehow differentiate and find new ways than other coffee shops.
Yeah. Let me write that down in just a second. Okay. The focus on their, actually I write something down here, unique benefits that help them, that lead to a differentiation strategy, right? That's kind of, and we'll circle back around to that. So finance folks, or I don't want to say number crunchers because we all are. We all, trust me, we all are. I want to get back to Austin. You made some highlights, as did Jen. Think about revenue or profit, if you wanted to, per square foot. Is that important in retailing, in restauranting? Is that important?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so everybody's focused on square footage because you pay for square footage for rent, you pay for square footage to build, right? How big your space is. So the numbers that we want to focus on, and a lot of folks want to focus on, is how much revenue am I generating per square foot? And some businesses generate enormous revenue per square foot, others don't. But let's think about this a little bit. Think about how much square footage it takes to have a walk-in space and how much square footage it takes to have a lounge space. Now think about the revenue you earn in both of those spaces per square foot. Your walk-in space is incredibly profitable, insanely profitable, because you need this and you need people to walk in and walk out. And they're paying you money every time, they're paying you $7 or $8 every time they do that. The other space, you have people who walk in, buy a coffee, drink for 3 hours. There's not a lot of space. There are only so many couches you can fit in there, right? I mean, if you just think about, I get the utility of those spaces, but somebody back home is saying, how costly is that lounge area space? You know, and I'm paying the same amount per square foot, whether it's in a high traffic area or a low traffic area, or a lounge area or a walk-up area, right? Does that make sense? Don't think that the folks up in Seattle and you know, they're sitting around, they're not just in their Birkenstocks sipping coffee all day, just wondering if it's going to rain or not. They're crunching numbers, and they want to know if I'm going to put a Starbucks in a mall or in a location, if it's going to be part of a new development. They're going to know how much the square footage is going to cost them, and they're going to know what their revenue per square footage is, and it's going to be maximized in every way they possibly can. So, and that is not a mark. I shouldn't even be saying that. This is a marketing class, isn't it? Why am I even saying that in a marketing class? But it's something that we have to have a conversation about, probably, where the rubber meets the road on that one. But so I did want to kind of, I love that insight. You mentioned that a little bit there, especially towards the end. The unique benefits of the offering. Have their unique benefits been diluted? In other words, are there other coffee chains out there that maybe have duplicated those? Or are those unique benefits that they once had, maybe they don't matter anymore? Have the consumers changed in such a way that what set them apart before no longer sets them apart? These are hypothetical questions, or rhetorical, or if you want to comment, you can.
Yeah, so I was saying similar to what she said about brand identity. I feel like that's the issue overall. Just because they don't know what they want to be, it's going to cause issues all the way down. Because, like, you know, similar to a snake, you cut a piece of body off and still wants to move, but cut the head off, yeah, it's soft.
Do they seriously?
Yeah, it's yeah, but
I hate snakes.
the moral of the story is, I hate snakes too. I only see them once.
I like other reptiles, like lizards, and they're cool. Snakes are nasty. Snakes are just disgusting.
It's not real. It's dinosaur stuff. It's not real.
It is dinosaur stuff. Alligators are cool.
They're not big.
Listen, any animal, any life form that has lived on Earth as long as an alligator has got to be cool.
It's terrifying.
Komodo dragon, those lizards. All right, snakes. But Branda, so yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying that it's going to be an issue all the time. I feel like personally, for their price, I mean, yeah, inflation, economy, they try to make profit and everything. It's not logical to go lower in prices, but also it's not logical to be a premium brand and then
Yeah.
go and get value meals.
Yeah.
We like talk about yesterday, or
Yeah.
not yesterday, but last week,
I agree.
as a company, and also what you said about different companies as well, about the purchasing process. You know, people's going to buy something that they value, or the value should equal to or more to than when you purchase.
Yeah.
They offer nothing. They don't usually much for their membership program. They just offer a free drink. I mean, I guess it makes sense in this economy, but it'd be better, in my opinion, like giving Starbucks exclusive cups or something. You know, they sell cups, and maybe give them exclusive members exclusive cups, and make exclusive flavors for only members only. Kind of, like improving that exclusivity.
Yeah.
But I mean, they just don't. So
Yeah. So you've got exclusivity. Sorry, my handwriting's really not great. Exclusivity, premium, branding, those types of things. We have, the market. There's going to be a market for that. How large is that market? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? I would also suggest that maybe in the early days, maybe a lot of their growth and their growth model, the growth models they had, might have been a result of novelty. It was new, it was different. It's, hey, we have a Starbucks now in town or on the corner, and we made it. We were finally on the map. We have a Starbucks, and that might have been part of it. Today, that's not so much the feel, though. They're maybe overexposed. Maybe.
yeah, I would say downsize and focus on the experience.
By downsizing, you increase exclusivity. I know it's counterintuitive, but making a product hard to find raises, in some cases, its ability to stand out and be unique, right? If it's all over the place, then it's like the Tesla thing. Tesla used to be, and maybe they still are, but they used to be unique and rare. I did see a Tesla truck the other day. I think there are two in the Myrtle Beach area. I've seen one of them, and it's pretty weird. It's pretty wild. Have you guys seen a Tesla truck? They're different. They are. Some would call them ugly. Some would call them futuristic. But anyways, the whole point is that if you overexpose yourself to the market, saturate the market too quickly, then you lose. If these are things you wanted to do, then you kind of lose those. And so, what is their identity? Who do they want to be? What do they want to be? It's great. It's worth asking that question. What else? Yeah, either Houston or Ryan.
Can we go first?
You fight it out.
Sure. One of the things that I mentioned, like with them talking about if they're a premium brand or not, is their like focus on mobile ordering. And for me, for like food services, everybody that does that isn't a premium brand. It's more like of a discount brand.
Really?
So they're doing
Interesting.
the same thing that all the competition's doing, that they're discount brands. They're kind of associate themselves with those brands.
Interesting. Okay. So we have this push. Everyone will say, well, companies need to adopt technology. They need to adopt cutting-edge technology and all this stuff. But what you're saying is if everybody adopts it, then now no longer you're cutting edge, I guess, right? Something like
Just
that?
like whenever I view like for food, like ordering online, like I think like McDonald's and Chick-fil-A, like I don't think of like premium brands. But then it also said that whenever they did that their sales shot up. So I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Right, their sales shot up, and I'm not surprised with that. Now, where I want to follow up a little bit, because I love this line of thinking, if you connect the dots to the, technology adoption makes things easier for customers, for everybody, but disagree if you want. I think in some cases what it does, maybe in a lot of cases what it does, is it takes out a level of service that is not compatible with that. When you can, in your car, on your phone, whatever, order your beverage, You never have to talk to anybody there. You never have to make eye contact with anybody there. I get Dunkin' Donuts coffee nearly every day, and I use an app, and I drive up and I walk in because the line is usually long, and I just walk in, and of the hundreds of times that I've done it, thousands probably, maybe on one hand I can count how many times somebody actually looked me in the eye and said, "Hey, how you doing?" or whatever. Maybe. And so, I mean, I don't know, I'm just a customer picking up my coffee, but if I didn't do it through the app, I'd at least be talking to somebody. They'd be smiling, they'd be taking my order, they would be filling my request in person. You know what I'm saying? So while this tech adoption, kind of, it boosts profit margin, it makes it easier for people to buy, all that stuff, I gotta believe there's something that's lost in that process that hurts them, that hurts their brand, that hurts their brand identity. If they really want to encourage people to come in and enjoy the atmosphere, they would never have an app. They would never have online ordering. I mean, that's completely counter to the concept of hosting people in your space to enjoy an afternoon of coffee, isn't it? It's like contradictory entirely. And now, look, again, we can't argue with the sales. We can't argue with the profit margins. It's baked into the business model now. I don't know that any of these companies could take it away now. Customers, because there's customer market segments who expect it. I mean, there's some people who absolutely won't go in and sit down, won't go into a counter, and they need it, and so that's fine. But I don't know, at some point, how you disengage yourself from the wonders of technology and the age-old, just human contact that they're trying to establish as well. So, yeah. Ryan.
So expanding onto that service element, I talked about specifically how Starbucks kind of nowadays it views you as more like an industrial number of just constantly pumping out orders regardless of whether or not you go in or you place a mobile order.
Okay.
You're kind of just a number in the system. There's no writing down your name because it automatically prints it out. And even if you come to the counter on a busy day, the people that are working there sometimes like talk to you with like you have some nerve to order a cup of coffee on a day where they sell coffee. And then I talked about it a little bit, but it's also, this is more so on Starbucks end. Before you've even gotten your order, they also turn around the tablet and they ask you for a tip for them to do what you asked them to do. Sure. There's no service element to it. There's no it's not like a waiter where...
Inflation, yeah.
It's not like a waiter where they took the food to the table and stuff like that. They're asking you for a tip for you asking them to do their job. Like, I'm not trying to, I don't want to sound rude in saying that, but I feel like that should be something
Those emotions run all the gamut with that.
That should be footed by Starbucks, in my opinion, shouldn't be put at the customer's end.
So some of the language they used was the depersonalization of the brand. And so depersonalization, another word with a lot of letters, might suggest this idea of automation that you're just another, at least if they put your name on it, that's one thing. But if you're just a number and you're getting your order and you're a number, then you're just a process step in some sense. That's depersonalization. You don't feel unique, I guess, something like that. So, yeah, that's a great observation. I like that. What else?
I kind of went at it from a different angle, but I think, with what a prominent brand it is, I think we're kind of past the point of that option of, the exclusivity aspect of it. So my idea was more to, lean into that change and embrace it. Okay. So, specifically with the tech adoption thing, I don't think, to get that back, you have to go back to, I know one of the articles referenced, writing the names on the cup. Right. I think that just can look different, with the app, for example, this is just something that came to mind. I'm not saying it would be realistic or successful, but just an idea is how Netflix curates your next show or TikTok gives your For You page with an algorithm. What if they did something curating your next drink and like doing things like that to bring back the like at least some personalization to it while embracing the technology aspect of things.
That's fantastic. An idea that solves the problem, right? It solves the problem in some ways, right? So mass customization, and where we're heading, customization. So mass customization can go on for a long time, but basically harnessing technological aspects to produce a one-to-one relationship with the customer. In fact, one of those principles we had last week talked about markets evolving from a homogeneous state to a heterogeneous state, where we think about one mass marketing approach moving towards a one-to-one marketing element. And what's really happening and really pushing the envelope in a very realistic way is AI algorithms that are able to produce a product or a service that's catered to you, so long as they have enough data about you. And if you have a shopping history, if they have any information, then they should be able, with a very, very high degree of reliability, predict your next cup of coffee, what you were going to order, and they should be able to predict complementary products that you would like based on your profile. This is not out of the reach of anything. It is 100% at our doorstep today. So what you're saying is that type of technology could enhance the experience by curating, by creating that unique experience.
Yeah.
They're not there yet, almost, but yeah. No.
I was just gonna say,
totally.
I think, yes, what made Starbucks famous in the first place was the store atmosphere, but the fact of the matter, and I think we touched on this last week, but there's nobody that's gonna have that choice and a small business with that same atmosphere now and not pick the small business. So I think that they have to lean into something different, and something like that, like those technological features would set them apart from a small business that could do that. Or couldn't do that.
What else?
Yes, I'm not gonna lie, they do got some bangers on here, because what she said is not all bad. Also, with the 170,000 flavors, they can do similar to a mass customization, as in kind of like a Burger King, have it your way type thing, and kind of flip it. And also, they did a good job with the China market. In the other article, they were saying they are partnering with local coffee shops, and they're kind of partnering and having them run the Starbucks and kind of implementing that type of system so they can utilize that to their advantage. So I was thinking that it's not just all bad. He do got some stuff that he can use to probably still keep it different and become an innovator, but just I do think that a lot of it has to do with brand identity. They just need to first figure out who they are first before they go forward with anything.
Yeah, and it's kind of a bigger picture, kind of this in international marketing and international business, there are approaches called standardization and localization, and localization is in the middle. You gain operational efficiencies when you do things in a standardized way, when you do things identically. So when everybody's a number, our costs go down, become very efficient. When everybody's an individual person, costs go up, but service and satisfaction go up. So how do you blend the two? When we do international launches, one approach is to standardize the things that don't matter, but then localize the things that do. So have a local merchant operating the business, have a local folks creating the flavor palettes that are appropriate for the local market, but do it operationally in a standardized way behind the scenes. And that's kind of the idea. So if we can standardize everything, but make the customer feel like it's a unique experience to them or a local experience to them, then that's kind of that point. Yeah, good. Anything else? Anything else? No. Yeah, Grace, of course.
Something I was surprised that they didn't mention in any of the articles is the Starbucks Reserves, which they're starting. I don't know. There's only a few in the U.S. that they serve cocktails, which is so random for a coffee shop.
No, it's not random at all. I think it's a natural thing, that a progression. So did you mention that at all in your?
No, not in my discussion.
So thinking about that, there are a couple areas that I think Starbucks is interesting in the sense that, in the early days, there was Starbucks Coffee. That was their name. They had a coffee image and logo and all of that. Then they dropped coffee to become Starbucks. And they've evolved from just a coffee shop, coffee product array to include some baked goods and some foods and teas and all of these types of things. The other thing that they did early on in the 1990s, you may know, they signed a deal with Pepsi. Yeah. Are you familiar with that at all? In the early days, early days before, okay, so this is going to throw you for a loop, and most of you know this, but it used to be not that long ago, nobody would ever drink or order cold coffee. Cold coffee didn't exist. Sweet tea did. Sweet tea is fantastic, but cold coffee was not a thing 30 years ago. It wasn't a thing. Just didn't exist. So I know that's foreign today, right? It's like crazy. When I go in and order coffee, I always get hot coffee, and I always have to tell them hot coffee. And that would never happen. It would always be hot. But the whole point is that in the 90s, Starbucks signed a North America agreement with Pepsi for Pepsi to supply Starbucks with a distribution network to grocery stores. And so Starbucks was the first company to, on a very large scale, create and distribute coffee in stores, iced coffee, pre-made, pre-brewed coffee, which was unheard of. Pre-brewed to begin with, cold second to begin with. It just didn't happen, right? And so that was like a form of differentiation that you don't really think about so much, but think about this today. I'm surprised Starbucks doesn't expand their product categories more so than they already have. It seems like they're in this vision of Starbucks only being a coffee shop, but this is a great example of how no. They're a beverage company, aren't they? They're not a coffee company. They're a beverage company. They're a lounge, possibly entertainment company, right? They've got all these locations. They could have open mic nights, and they could serve their cocktail coffees. And, there could be so many more things that they become than what they have been or what they are. Does that make sense? Is that reasonable? That's how firms evolve and how firms grow and they change. And, this isn't your parents' Starbucks. This is your Starbucks, right?
To kind of piggyback on what you're saying there, you're talking about differentiating and adding on the alcohol and things like that. Guys that smoke cigars like to smoke cigars and pair it with different drinks. Well, a lot of it's coffees, a lot of it's liquors.
Sure.
So if they teamed up with, bourbon or brandy, distilleries, and then if they teamed up with one of the large cigar manufacturers, and they literally design a cigar and design the liquors to pair with their coffees. Now you've got a whole nother market of people all over the world that would then be jumping on board.
So it's interesting how what they'll do moving forward. Yeah, Lana.
But aren't the main customers more younger people?
It's a great question. I
Because I thought back in the days it was
I don't know. I would say that is a demographic. Are young people flush with disposable income to pay $6 or $7 for a cup of coffee?
Depends on the location.
Should we be encouraging that? No, I guess what I'm saying is people who enjoy great coffee and can afford a premium price, I don't think that's a age cohort thing necessarily. I think there are plenty of older folks who like that experience as well. I may be wrong.
Yeah, I have a different experience. When I went to Starbucks, I was 14.
Yeah.
And now I
All the crazy things we did when we were 14.
No, because it was just something new. In Germany, you came was nice, but when they like introduce liquor and all that stuff, I was just thinking like if they have the customer base for that or not.
Yeah, now, that's not to say that they may not have to grow that. So you're making a great observation, and this is one of these things that we see. We look at who their customer bases are today, and they may have multiple segments of customers. But if they adopted some of these changes, would that lend them an opportunity to break into other market segments that are more profitable? Older folks are more profitable than younger folks. They just are. They have more disposable income. They're better consumers. They just are. They're more loyal in a lot of ways. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you're looking at who do you want to be a customer, I want customers who have a lot of money, who have a lot of time on their hands, who don't mind spending the money, right? I mean, I'd rather not have, in comparison, people who are short on time, not very loyal, don't have a lot of money. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I've got to choose my customer. I've got to choose the ones that are more profitable than the ones that aren't. That's not saying, I don't know what they can do. I don't know if they can establish a new market segment that would be adaptable to that, maybe. Who knows? Houston, did you have something else? No, you're good? Yeah.
Going with like the whole age thing, I know my parents and my grandparents, they're like intimidated of Starbucks because they don't know the difference between like the venti and the grande and like
all I know is venti means 20.
With, like sugar and milk.
So right?
Yeah.
Isn't the venti bigger than the grande or something?
Yeah.
Their wording is wrong.
I get confused too.
Yeah, well, no, they're wrong in the words they use, but that's okay.
But just like they go more for like, I just want like a plain coffee with sugar and milk, and then they look at the menu at Starbucks and it's all these like crazy combinations, and they're like, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah. I don't get intimidated, but I get confused.
Yeah, it's more of just a confusion thing between.
But what's also confusing is when I said I'd like a venti coffee. And they look at me and like, what else? What coffee? No, coffee, just venti. Coffee. Well, what do you want in it? Nothing. Just coffee. Mm-hmm. So it's really kind of a two-way street sometimes, but it's Starbucks' job to minimize that confusion. It's not the customers. Mm-hmm. And this is a big failure on their part. And maybe some of the issues that are, it is not the customer's job to feel confused. It's not their fault that they're confused. It's not their fault that they feel intimidated. That is Starbucks' fault. 100%. There's nobody's fault more than theirs to make a customer feel uncomfortable. They are driving customers away because they're blind to that. That would be my thoughts in that respect. I mean, the customer isn't always right. The customer is not always the king or the queen. But my goodness, when you build barriers to make people feel uncomfortable, what do you expect? Right? I thought at Starbucks everybody loved everybody and the world was great. Well, that's not the case for a lot of the people who go in there. And that's just mind-boggling to me that a company would be that blind to that issue. And again, your point is extremely well taken. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a solid point. What else? Yeah.
An issue that wasn't in the articles at all, but I experienced it personally.
Okay.
The difference of pricing between the corporate locations and the franchise locations.
Oh, really?
Is way too much. Like if you go to a corporate Starbucks, like on the side of 501, and you get your drink, it's still $7. Get the same drink in the mall, it's almost $10. And I feel like that needs to be fixed in between.
Yes.
Cost per square foot there.
Yeah, that's an interesting observation. I honestly, I don't know anything about their franchisee-franchisor ratio and how that goes. I kind of thought they were all corporate owned. But I also know, though, that there are certain locations that like don't accept the loyalty things or don't take
Those are the franchise locations.
Okay, I see. And they are consistently more expensive.
Yeah, and they have
Okay.
less options. They don't really get seasonal flavors depending on the size of the location.
Yeah.
It's just not the same.
Yeah, and it hurts the overall corporate image, doesn't it? Because you go in expecting it to be a Starbucks with all the offerings. They don't have it. Yeah. Okay, good one. Good. All right, so look, this is a marketing class, so a lot of things we're focusing on are, how we interface with the customer, with the market, what types of decisions we might be able to make or changes we can make from a corporate perspective. I wanted to show just a couple of slides relating to this. Sometimes this doesn't always work. Here we go. All right. I wanted to offer. I had. We'll see if this will pull up. Okay, when growth stalls. So this is with many companies, you'll see periods of time where the organization falls into a stagnated time of growth, or a period of time where they can't get traction, they can't grow the way they had in the past, and that's called a stagnation. So just a little bit of information, and you could maybe think that Starbucks is experiencing some of this now. This assignment and these readings talked a lot about why they are having some short-term struggles and what they could do to maybe help get them out of these short-term struggles per se, but it's not uncommon. Many, many, many companies experience periods of time where they stagnate, where they don't innovate, they don't change, they don't reinvent themselves until sales tell them they should. So a study was done, this is an older study from 2008, basically it talks about this, it's a study that's based on 500 different companies, but from companies that stall, that slow down, you see these periods where before sales start to taper off or flatten out, typically we see a lot of growth. So it's not uncommon, for a company, maybe you take Starbucks for instance, you look at their growth and their sales and their revenues, years going up and they seem fantastic, but then all of a sudden they flatten out. And then they have to try to figure out how to get out of that, and getting out is hard. Getting out is difficult. So a lot of companies that experience huge growth, then plateau, many of them don't figure out how to recapture that growth again. And again, think about it from an investor's standpoint. Starbucks is not a bad company. Starbucks is not small. It's not going out of business. It's not, we bash them a little bit just because that was the assignment, but they're not a bad company. They're great people there, great vision. But to satisfy an investor, you need to show profits and revenue growth every year. And when you don't, then it starts to send a signal and people get nervous. And then what you think was great now is obviously tarnished and there's something wrong with it. So this illustration just kind of shows this idea that companies that stall show great growth. Years of stall, years right before a stall, we have 9 to 13% growth rates. Once a company, however, gets into a stall, it can be difficult to get out. And that's maybe where a company like Starbucks, they need to maybe do some of this soul searching or whatever. Maybe they don't need to make big changes, but maybe they need to reevaluate kind of their models and see what's happening there. This study in the next slide kind of tracked, again, It was published in 2008, tracked 500 different Fortune 500 companies over a 50-year period of time. So what they did basically, there used to be a database out there that was available that you could subscribe to where you could, and still today's out there, where you can look at revenue and sales over long periods of time for lots of companies. And so they investigated this, and they took 500 companies over 50 years. Of those 500 companies that they chose, 87% of them, at some point over that 50-year time horizon, went into a stall. So again, stalls are common. Stalls happen. Companies face seasons in their history where they don't grow rapidly, right? And so the question for us is, well, how do you get, and of course we want to talk about like marketing solutions to get out of a stall. Now, here's the thing, if you get into a stall, you can get out of it. In this data set that was analyzed, 46% of the companies that got into a stall were able to re-emerge relatively soon and grow again. However, once you get into the stall, 54% of them didn't or struggled within a short period of time. So again, it's not impossible to get out of a stall, get out of a sales growth plateau, but you're not making life easy for you if you get into one to begin with. Following that, 67% of those who got into the stall or who couldn't get out of the stall, 67% of them ended up being acquired or going bankrupt. Starbucks is not going bankrupt. Starbucks is not going anywhere. I think they're too good a company, right? Maybe right now, or maybe soon would be, buy into Starbucks, invest in them right now. So I guess the question then is, what marketing elements can we do? This actually was I had this, and it was just appropriate to put in here. This is some sales data from a stall that Starbucks had years ago. So this is not their first time that Starbucks has seemingly run into some trouble where they feel like they need to get out of this. So sales and revenue numbers for stores grew quickly over the years. 2008, sales leveled off. They felt like this was a concern from 2008 to 2000, or right in that time period. And at that particular time, one of their solutions, which we talked a little bit about exclusivity, but one of their solutions was to take away stores, to reduce store units. All right, so they lowered the number of worldwide stores. They stopped building new ones, and that allowed them to become a little bit more profitable, a little bit more focused on operations as opposed to building, and the revenue grew in the short term right after that, effectively pulling them out of the stall that they felt they were in 2008. So now, there are some issues on, kind of firm performance, and we'll just have to see what happens, right? It'll be fun to watch. We have to see what over this fall and winter. Will they still have the pumpkin spice? Do they already have it yet?
Yeah. I think so, but they couldn't not. I think wars would start.
It's institutional now.
It would go crazy. Yeah, I think it would have to happen.
That would
There'd be riots at best.
There would definitely be clamoring in the streets for something. All right, cool. Thank you for indulging on that. I think that's a good exercise. It's worth talking about different companies like that. I'll try to get us on track here. Let's talk a little bit about what we're doing this week, if that's okay. Hopefully this will work all right. This week's material shifts gears a little bit. It takes us a little bit further into marketing and the planning process. By the end of tonight's class, we'll talk a little bit about our class project. So we want to carve out, save time to do that, no doubt. But this discussion we had, it was great. It was fantastic. I'm glad we spent the time to do that. You know, when I look at the planning overview or planning process and integrating marketing as a portion of that, I almost always go back to a planning model that is simulated or expressed in almost every marketing plan, and very similarly in business plans in general. If you're going to think about planning for the organization, there's multi-step, there's multi-level, I guess, areas of abstraction that happen at the highest level, where you're thinking of the industry, the environment, macro-environmental trends from the company level. At some point, there's a strategy portion in sort of the middle, and then we drop down to a functional level set of plans that happen. Whether it's like in marketing or all the other areas that we may have, HR, finance, operations, those types of things as well. Marketing plans may be designed and developed here, which are a portion of or held within a broader business plan. But again, I want to sort of come back to this idea of little m and big M. So I think it's kind of important, especially when we think about organizational planning. Little m deals with this area here, in particular this little area here. Years ago, marketing was just this space, but when we start to evolve into big M, what it suggests is that these marketing goals and objectives and some of this strategy starts being discussed further up the chart, in a higher level within the organization. And so, again, I'm not going to harp on the fact that there's a CMO in the C-suite, and when they're talking about annual planning, that there's going to be a voice there. There's going to be somebody to speak towards that direction. So, again, nowadays when we start talking about organizational planning, kind of what we're doing, we're going to talk a little bit about missions and purpose for the organization and how that has a role to play in some of the marketing activities that we do today. So chapter 2, again, it's kind of an interesting chapter. It talks about the kind of the decision-making mechanisms that are in planning for marketing strategy, some of the directions. It also interjects in there some concepts called portfolio analysis. So I want to try to hit on that a little bit today too. Typically when I teach this class or teach a class like this, and we're talking about planning or marketing plans or business plans, it almost always falls into a 3-part process. And again, if you were to look at a traditional marketing management textbook or principles of marketing textbook, they follow this schematic. Almost every single one of them does. And if you do a business plan or a marketing plan, they also follow this schematic. When you write one, it starts from a very broad perspective where you talk about things that may be external to the firm. They're macro environment elements. They're big organizational questions like what are our resources, what are our strengths, those types of things. We're looking at long-term trends. But at that very high level evaluation, we're talking about kind of the world that the business operates in and evaluating it, understanding it, and making sure we understand kind of those threats and those opportunities. Some people do SWOT analyses in this section of their planning process. It's something that we look at and may be organized from a long-term perspective. So again, from a learning, from a planning model kind of piece, first thing that we typically tackle is this concept. Again, if you're in any management class, you're going to see probably similar dynamics where when you start to plan, we look at the big picture from a wide lens first. The second area that we look at in a little bit more of a marketing context would be elements of strategy that we perform or that we engage in that you might, again, think of as more marketing kind of, kind of related, I guess. Growth models. Boy, everybody wants to know how we're going to grow. Are we going to grow by creating new products? Are we going to grow by selling more people products we already offer? Are we going to grow by finding new markets? We talked about offering Starbucks cafes that, is with cigar bars and lounges, and that opens up whole new customer bases for our products. That's a growth strategy. Could be part of the growth strategy that we do. Market segment analysis, identifying profitable customers as opposed to non-profitable customers. If you're going to sell to 2 people and you can only sell to one of them, you want the one that's more profitable and give you more money. So that's what we look at when we look at market segments. We look at the ones that are profitable and choose them first. And but market segment analysis is a big deal. It's something that we spend a lot of time in. Definitely product development. There are other things too, but channel management. So we look externally to a lot of partners that will help bring the product to the market. We want to bring the product to the market, maybe using an omni-channel approach where we have lots of different ways customers can access our product. But we have partners who are going to help us do that, and they need to be managed. So that's a strategy that we develop, and it has to be thought through very carefully. CRM is customer relationship management. I didn't write it out because there's only a little bit of space there. Customer relationship management, thinking about journey mapping, the life of a customer, thinking about customer lifetime value, calculating that is something that we would focus on there. And all the different kind of pressures that lead into that promote value in the customer, but managing customers. So using technology to help us create a relationship with the customer by customizing and curating products, that's a CRM thing right there. That's managing the customer and customer expectations and delivering the value that they want in a very systematic way. But those are all things that we do sort of in this middle stage. Again, many of them are very marketing-y types of things. But they all have a very, very big impact on the firm's performance. Right? I mean, the firm will perform better if these things are done well, is basically the bottom line. Right? And so we think of them as vital things that we have to do. This semester we'll talk about a lot of these types of things as we go along. Right? We talk less about these things, more about these things. The functional planning is the very last space. If you think about what happens within the function, this is the folks who are getting their hands dirty, doing the work, placing the ads, putting the products on the shelf, designing the packaging. I would also put, I don't know if I put it up there, branding should be up there. I don't know why branding's not up there. Branding should be up there, but it's not. But anyways, functional level would be the where the rubber meets the road, where the action gets implemented a lot of the time. When you execute a plan, it's usually executed by doing things at the functional level. And that has to be planned out and organized. So this is the way we think about planning in an organization. If we were going to do a marketing plan, it would start from left to right. We would go through all of these different pieces, finish up with control and outcomes, something like that. Start with an executive summary, and then you'd have it for the most part. Now you'll note that a couple things. It progresses from left to right from a very broad perspective of the world around you to a very narrow perspective of what has to be done today. It's also broad to narrow from a time horizon too. Things we talk about on the far left are long-term issues that change slowly and evolve. They're not things that if you want to affect things here, they're very slow moving. They take a lot of time to do. As you progress to the right, the things that you want to implement can happen immediately. On here, If you want to make a price change, that's just a keystroke. Literally, a keystroke makes a price change, and prices change in a lot of businesses. So the things that we do here can be implemented and addressed immediately in a very, very short time frame, and that's just kind of the way this type of a models work. Cool, good so far. All right, so look, let's step back then a little bit. The very beginning, the top of the chart, the top of any type of business plan will introduce mission and purpose. And so, kind of as we move along, today especially, and in your reflection for this week, we're going to talk a little bit about purpose, what the purpose of an organization is. And if that's changing, if that's shifting, and if there's a relevant role that marketing plays in doing that, right? I know this whole planning thing sounds a whole lot like management, and I'm not a management professor, and I don't want to insult any management folks, so I won't pretend to even try to do that. That's their world. Writing business plans is their world. Writing mission statements is their world. However, there's a real tangible connection nowadays between the mission and purpose of an organization and how we relate to markets. And we'll see that here in just a few moments. So I don't know. I know you'll have access to all of these notes. But when we start thinking about elements of a mission statement, and the text kind of walks through some key kind of like what mission statements have, what they include. And there are things that are similar to this. Being able to state who we are and who we should be serving, what our operating philosophies are, like what our values are, our basic beliefs, what we stand for as a corporate culture might be expressed in the mission of the organization. You may also highlight the things that you do exceptionally well that are core competencies that others don't. Maybe you incorporate something like that. And finally, where you feel the role of the organization is in being a steward to society, to sustainability, to all of those social elements that are out there. So now, this isn't all the things that used to be in a mission statement years ago. It's just kind of like who we are and what we did. We build widgets. That's what we do, or whatever. But it's evolved quite a bit to include other elements that are more inclusive and more holistic in terms of why the company exists. And that's really the big question here. We think about why does the organization even exist? Now, in the good old days, we'd say, well, it exists to return profit to shareholders, investors, and owners, right? Of course. Can it, if an organization exists, all right, let me throw this one at you. If an organization exists and it does not return profit to the investors, it's called a nonprofit. It's called a government agency, right? It's not called a for-profit business. So don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Don't feel like you're doing something wrong if you return profit to investors. That's what that is part of the deal. And if you're not doing that, you're not a business. Period. There's no gray area there. Okay? And that's okay too. I mean, there are many, many, many amazingly good nonprofits and government agencies, but if they're not returning profit to their owners, if they don't have owners, then we're talking about we're talking about alligators and snakes. No, we're talking about different animals. We're talking about two different things. Okay, so other examples of some brand missions that might be out there. And again, think about brand missions and kind of this whole wrapped up thing of purpose and all of this together as a thing. Patagonia, there's an article that would be available to you for the reflection that deals with some of Patagonia's stuff. There's also a video that's there. If you want to watch it, you can. We're in the business to save our planet. Build the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire and implement solutions to our environmental crisis. Okay, maybe a little over the top, but maybe not, just depending on whether you like that type of a statement or not. Patagonia is an amazingly, incredibly profitable business. They make a lot of money. They make a great profit, financial profit. They are a very profitable business. But they don't mention that anywhere, right? You wouldn't get that as being their motive to exist. Their motive to exist is not necessarily to make profit, it's whatever their mission says it is. Okay, Nike, to bring inspiration and innovation. I don't know, I think these are mostly up to date. Sometimes they change, so forgive me if they're not. I think they're right, but to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world, if you have a body, you're an athlete. Right, so something like that. Dove, to empower women and embrace their own beauty. Dove is an amazing company in their development of their brand. They have incredibly strong brand value. Dove does for the things that they've done to empower women to embrace themselves. Really good. Another empowerment Apple to empower creative exploration, self-expression from Apple. If you think of an Apple product and you think of using an Apple product, my goodness, there is a whole lot of exploration that happens with those types of products. Their ads, a lot of the things that they encourage are creativity with their products. So it's kind of they live what they try to do. Coca-Cola, to refresh the world, to inspire moments of optimism and happiness. Well, have a Coke and a smile, right? Absolutely. I don't think that's ever changed. I mean, the wording has changed, but what they kind of drive at has been pretty consistent. Google, to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. That's an interesting one, I think. You know, Alphabet has been found to be a monopoly recently, right? When was that? A month ago? Or so, whatever that was, found in court of law to exert unnecessary or demonstrate monopolistic powers. In an article I read, did I mention this last week? I did, didn't I? Did I mention this, the percentage of, did I?
But is it going to become a baby bill?
Well, it could. Something has to happen. 90% of internet searches today, 90% of internet searches in the world use one form or another of an Alphabet product. An Alphabet product is used in some capacity, or service is used in some capacity in 90% of all internet searches. 95% of all internet searches on a handheld device. So in other words, an Alphabet company, Google or otherwise, has a role to play in 90 to 95% of all searches done. Now, I didn't mention this last week.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I did. Okay. I knew I did. I just didn't remember to who. All right, you get the point. Good power company. So make it universally accessible. I think they have done. I think they've probably done a great job of making it available now. They might have limited competition to do so. Much stronger people, but that's okay. All right, other, kind of another verbiage. I don't think I'm going to go through all this because I need to kind of get going and get moving here. It's 7:20. Again, harping on Patagonia a little bit. They again have evolved. They've added in 2022 a core value statement. This might be something that is added in addition to a mission. But again, I don't want to get too management-y here in developing and creating a mission. I would get it wrong every time if I had to write a mission. But what it talks about is the purpose and the reason for the company to exist. Why does the company exist? I think a lot of companies exist to provide value to a customer. for instance, because I'm a marketer. Provide value to employees, to return a profit to the investors. I think those are all very important things, and so that's why I think it's important to talk about. And again, we're going to wrap around to some marketing theory that's going to help us here. But you can get an idea that they've expanded their mission to be the best product, cause no unnecessary harm, use business to inspire, and implement solutions to the environment, and so on. Right? So just hold on to that, and then finally, the main model, the thing that people look at a lot is this. You've probably no doubt seen the ESM or ESG model, or ESM, what do they call it? Yeah, ESG, sorry. The environmental, social, governance model to help guide business operations, especially with corporate social responsibility objectives. And this is one of these deals where if you write a mission, if you establish your vision and the purpose for your organization, does it violate or conflict with elements that might be in this model? So again, in other courses, you may have been exposed to this model, kind of seen a model that helps kind of, all right, well, what should a company be doing nowadays to be socially responsible? Boy, that's a tough question. There's a real tough answer for that. I don't know the answer to that. It changes, the targets change all the time, and you know what? It changes by market as well, depending on who your customer is. You ask one customer what they should do to be socially responsible, and they'll give you a whole laundry list of things. You ask another customer and say, I don't care, right? So the market's all over the place. There's a lot of inconsistency, but models like this help us. They help guide us. They help guide us in writing mission statements. They help guide us in doing some of these things that we're supposed to be doing. Okay, any questions? No one's fallen asleep yet, so I think that's good. Doing all right? We're doing fine. I know there's a lot going on tonight. There's men's soccer that's playing as we speak. Football will be playing in a little while. Women's soccer is this week, playing some games. What other things are going on? I know there are concerts. There's ROTC. I know you've been busy with...
No idea.
I know this is a busy time, but we're having a good time tonight. All right, so how does this relate to marketing, this whole mission thing? So in marketing, over the last, 10 years, in the academic space anyways, there has been a tremendous emphasis placed on incorporating and developing marketing strategy that includes a social dynamic or social element. And it's partly reactionary. It's a lot reactionary, to be honest. Look, markets and consumers, there are consumers out there who stress and they want for-profit companies to deliver some type of social value. Not just financial value, but social value as well. That emphasis and that demand is growing and growing and growing. So while the markets and people and consumers want more social accountability from companies, a response that companies have had, and in particular marketers, are saying, okay, well listen, you want us to be socially responsible. You want us to donate money. You want us to do this and do that. You want us to do that? You should be willing to pay more for it. You're going to support it, right? What happens if we do what you want us to do? Will you return some type of organizational benefit to us? And the short answer is yes, they will. Being socially prominent, socially responsible, doing the things that markets want, consumers want, tends to build loyalty, tends to build trust, tends to build satisfaction, tends to create a price premium that you can charge customers. and so on and so on and so forth. So not to put in bad light doing good. I think we should always do good. I really do. But what evidence strongly suggests is that when companies do good, like Patagonia, they get rewarded financially for doing it. And that's an important takeaway. It truly, truly, truly is. That you can do good or be purpose-led and still find financial gains by doing so, by doing it that way. Starbucks has been a pretty responsible company, right? For the most part. I mean, sure, everybody falls every once in a while. We're not all perfect, but they've been incredibly profitable. They've been a great company to make money with. So why not? All right, so the term purpose-led marketing then is when a company has a vision or an agenda and it becomes the reason why they exist. Purpose-led expresses a stronger motivation for a company's existence. So that's why we ask, what is the purpose of the company? Because the purpose of the company defines how they will behave. And if you start behaving in a way, if you start implementing strategy, or if you do business practices that violate your purpose, then there'll be a lot of conflict. And there'll be a lot of internal issues and problems with your company. So if the purpose of your company is to make money, return profit to the investors, and you start doing all this social stuff that seems to be diluting your profit margin, then there's going to be conflict. If your purpose of your company at Patagonia is to be an environmentally very sensitive company and really think about the long-term effects of production and all that, and if you start using like fast fashion, suppliers, that's bad. That's bad for the environment, it's bad for everybody, it's bad for child labor, it's bad for the whole world economy, and it's be in violation with the internal constructs of your business. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Right, I mean, so you can't have a purpose and then act in conflict of your purpose without conflict.
I think it also depends on the country.
Okay, yes, thank you.
I read that in China, for example, they are willing to pay up more than 10% for a product if it's sustainable.
Excellent.
So that was interesting.
Okay, so this phenomenon of, it isn't just like, it's all over, or it can vary too, dramatically. Different markets will react differently to it. Different age cohorts will, different geographic footprints. Yeah, cool. I love that insight. That's good. That's good. So sometimes this is called conscious marketing, like your conscience is speaking to you or something like that. But purpose-led marketing is there. Some statistics that I'm sure you're aware of, 93%, and some of these are kind of similar in their respects. 93% of people would buy a product that is associated with a cause. 87% of millennials, thank you millennials, believe that businesses should put equal emphasis on business interests as well as social interests, which is of course interesting. 80% of people are willing to buy a product from, even if the name is unknown, but they know that the brand is environmentally or socially responsible. Right? So that's like, we put a lot of effort and money into brand management and brand development, brand equity. But this is an act or practice that carries a lot of strength, and even more so than brand equity. 74% of millennials view businesses as part of the community with greater social responsibility. There's extra width in there, so please ignore that. Businesses are part of the fabric of our lives. Brands are in particular. They make up who we are. So does the community. So they're part of our community, and that's the sentiment that's pushed there. 71% of people report being willing to pay more for a product. That's something we call a price premium. When you can charge a price premium, it's because you do something that people like and want. 57% of people would purchase a product. This is amazing. They'd purchase a product of lower quality if it were more socially, environmentally responsible. So the sacrifices people, and not all markets, but a lot of markets, would take to support a company or a business that shares their sentiments on social, in the social strata, get rewarded. There's reward at the end of the day for this. Now, you know, like all folks who like to think about strategy, well, how can we make money off of this? How can we exploit the market to be able to, oh, wait, businesses shouldn't do that. Should we exploit markets to make money? I'm going to get in trouble. That's a loaded question. So, I mean, can we just on the surface say, oh yeah, we love the environment. We're going to slap a green package on here and say it was produced with fresh water. I mean, maybe that works, right? Maybe it doesn't. No, it does. People buy it. People buy those products. People spend price premium on those products. Now, obviously, we want to be truthful. We don't want to deceive or anything like that. But it's a business practice now, and that we'll move into, and we'll talk about a little bit more. So this whole space is part of what a company may do for their corporate social responsibility platform, but it's a little bit more strategic than just having a CSR program. In marketing, we call this cause marketing or cause-related marketing, and it's a strategic initiative that a company will do where they partner with or they interact with social issues that resonate with their market. So this is a real important idea. If your market, if the consumers who are buying your product feel strongly about something, then if you also feel strongly about that something, then your values will align with theirs and they'll be much more likely to buy your product. They'll be much more likely to be loyal to your product. They'll be much more likely to tell their friends about your product. Also, if we think about something called the value proposition, in business we call the value propositions what the customer buys, but it's everything the customer buys. It's not just a cup of coffee. When you buy at Starbucks a cup of coffee, you get a cup, and you get the liquid, and the fluid, and the ice, and it tastes delicious. But you're also paying some money and buying what they represent, what that cup represents. You're buying their brand. You're buying their logo. You're paying for the whole thing. Things you can't even touch or sense, right? That's the value proposition. That's what happens. That's what we sell. We sell value propositions. We don't sell products. We satisfy needs, right? That was one of those principles from last week. So this is kind of tapping into that. So what are the benefits for a company to be able to do this? Well, positive public sentiment. It builds trust and authenticity in the market when we are true to a purpose that supports them and reflects their kind of space, if you will. Builds overall awareness for the brand, deepens engagement. So, okay, how many of you have social media accounts and you engage with, you see a post and you like it, or you repost it, or you view it, just open it, right? Those are all engagements. Those are all things that get increased when your market sees that you're doing things that they also like. It also helps us extend our product into new markets, customers we don't already sell to, people who've never bought our product before, or bring it to locations that have never experienced our product before. Again, it's kind of a bridge that helps us sell to other markets. If we engage in purpose-led marketing that deals with elements that customers want. Now, simultaneously, when we engage in activity with a social issue, social cause, or a nonprofit, it builds awareness for that. So if we say, we really care about the rainforests, and we're not going to use any coffee beans that will deplete rainforest supplies, well, that builds awareness for rainforests as well. People become more knowledgeable about that issue, right? So we're serving that cause by building awareness as a result of us tackling that issue. it also, and this is a little weird, I know, and this is more like, okay, if we team up we partner with a nonprofit, that nonprofit can then get new customers or get new volunteers or get new clients, right? So does that make sense? That's kind of a little weird connection, but it actually happens that way. It also allows that cause to generate funds for themselves. Maybe that rainforest organization can generate revenue now because Starbucks has promoted them and done some goodwill gestures towards them. Finally, for the customer themselves, it allows them to participate in solving a problem, right? Maybe as a customer I can't do a whole lot, but if I do buy my coffee there, at least I know I'm not doing more harm. Maybe that's the way to think about it there as well. It also gives us a sense of joy, pride, satisfaction, a sense of accomplishment because we feel like we're part of a solution by buying our products from the companies that are socially responsible. So all these things are good. I mean, all these things are, kind of what we want to be able to go with and make progress towards. Does it seem reasonable? And again, I can't stress this enough. There are entire fields now in cause-related marketing. There's lots and lots of work done from a strategic perspective, understanding like which causes are best to adopt. At what levels do you need to adopt? We're gonna be a little stressed for time, so I'm not gonna go through the rest of these slides. They're available for you. One of the things that's included in these slides are different techniques that companies do, like Tom's shoes, for instance. You buy one, they donate one. You buy one pair, they donate a pair of shoes to people who need them. That's one method. You could do another method where simply a portion of your sale goes to a charity or to help relieve something, right? So one method is you can uptick your final charge. You want to round up to $1 and the rest of that money goes to a charity, right? You can integrate your retail or distribution systems. PetSmart has programs where they'll distribute nonprofit stuff through their stores, for instance, and they leverage their retail locations to help benefit nonprofits. There are lots of strategies, lots of things, and we study those. We try to understand which ones are the best. Hopefully we'll be able to talk more about this later in the term, but this kind of brings us up to the reflection for this week. So if you were to go on to Moodle, you don't have to do it right now, but there's going to be a couple readings there, and I'm just going to pivot over to that just so we can look at it briefly. Where are we? We are weekly readings, reflection number 2. I do have here, and you don't have to watch, but you can. There's a video, and it is a little bit longer, but it describes Patagonia, and it describes in really great way their commitment to longevity and some of the programs that they've done. But reflection number 2, there's going to be a few readings here. Basically, the idea is this. I want you to think about when as a company exists, one of the goals needs to be to produce a profit, a financial gain. There has to be financial value that organizations deliver. But what is becoming increasingly demanded by markets is that there's also a social value that's delivered as well. And so you can read this prompt and you can get ahead on this. We do on Wednesday, just kind of like this one was last week. And there's some supplemental readings here. This is a really good, the overview of social marketing. It just gives a summary of social cause marketing from a strategic perspective. If you're running a business, then we worry about costs and we worry about the impacts of the things we're going to do on the market. This would be a good one to kind of just breeze through. Barilla Pasta, Patagonia, there's another read. Those are just some examples of the effects of social causes on their businesses. This cause marketing, should say marketing there, overview is kind of like a textbook chapter. It's optional. You can look at it if you want. Again, it'll give you more background. I mean, if you're interested about social causes, or if you're interested in nonprofit marketing or anything like that, any of these would be good for you to, you might find them interesting. Yes. Okay? Good? Good so far? Yeah? Yeah, Jen.
One thing on the grading for reflection 2 is
Uh-oh.
part of quality of your response to classmates, but it's
Oh.
not a discussion forum.
I'll remove
Okay.
that. I'm so sorry,
No,
but I'm
you're
glad
fine.
you mentioned that. All right, so as you know, I run this in parallel to my online class. The online folks do a discussion during the week with fellow classmates, kind of like what we did at the beginning of this class with Starbucks, only I don't see them. So I got to change the verbiage on that. I'll fix it. Yeah. I make those mistakes all the time. Sorry. All right, cool. I guess while we're here, let's, you're going to see that there's our first case posted. We haven't talked about cases yet, but there's a first case posted. I have a video, a short video that describes the case process. I'll send that to you in one of the class announcements so that we don't use time to deal with it, to talk about it, if that's okay. But this is due on the 9th. There are 3 cases throughout the semester. Cases are fairly significant efforts. They're going to take some time. You're going to have to read them, the case itself, a few times. It's full of information, lots and lots of data, lots of information is in each case. There's a central problem in each case, and your job is to identify what the problem is, which won't be hard, but come up with alternative solutions as to what you would do as a manager. Evaluate those alternatives, choose one to move forward with. But I, like I said, I have a video that kind of talks you through the case method process. So what I'll do is I'll make that available to you this week. I'll send it out to you, and then we can talk more about it next week, as we need to. How's that sound? I just wanted you to know that that's there and that's available to you. Yeah. Okay. You guys want to take about a 5-minute break? I do too. Why don't we take about a 5-minute break? Actually, come back 5 till 8, if that's okay. So it'll be about 7 minutes, 8 minutes. We'll come back and we'll wrap this up. We'll do one more segment and then we'll talk about the projects. Sound good? Good. Thanks.
Please don't.
Yeah, honestly,
I thought I recognized you.
Jordan, are you going to have to deal with altitude adjustments?
Probably.
Player in the fall.
Oh.
Where are you going?
I don't know what's on.
Yeah, no,
You are?
I think
He just didn't like teach us anything.
Yeah,
Just stood there.
pushing the group.
That was kind of the vibe we got to.
Yeah. Like it's terrible.
Harry would be at half the time. So do you know the same training for research?
But I went over to the
So we're having
university and did hours
accessing that for some reason. Do you know of any like free alternatives that
and it
because
was
we're
like
on
so much better.
or right now
They let us
on
actually like
something.
workouts.
It's
I mean, I can kind of see both sides of it.
I don't know.
I don't know about the other programs, I know that the MBA program
CIT training.
like results oriented, so like if my
universally
doesn't make progress, we'll have to get rid of it.
This
I can kind of see it.
There's also like no room in that week to have.
Especially whenever we have a group in there and it's
Yeah,
kind of
there's
rowdy.
no room to
For
have.
whatever reason, we have a little
He should have never
And he came
had
There
it,
was a
especially
person over
because
there for institutional research
yeah.
Hours
who,
than he did.
so I don't know
Nowhere
if
to
it's
So he was
research
learning
is-
to plane portion of
We
it.
can't even do the one job we have to stand.
And I could,
like when I do research, I have to.
Yeah.
it's just what he was saying.
I didn't.
And then
Basically,
I
it's
didn't
an
take
easy
any
process, but
classes,
that's the office that.
thought through it, so
And they also.
Here I am, we graduated.
we would learn to say it, and he was looking like.
And.
Did you just start this?
Well, so I played last
It'd be like
2 years and then I did surgery.
We had to learn
Like this year,
because
last
it's
year.
hard to retain
And I
yourself.
was never the same type of player. So I like I knew the game really well, so they asked me to stay on.
Yeah, and
Yes.
So.
I don't know why.
But this program like MBA, you just started it,
Oh,
or
no, I'm actually, I got 3 classes left, I'm done with
So I don't
this is my first
So do you think get in touch with
First one. Jerry, you want to concentrate?
I don't know what the fuck's going on.
Who was just in
You not
5 years.
Don't tell me that, stop, I already cried.
How did you do in like?
Went over originally.
That's exercise science.
Yeah.
Went over his kind.
Academics and
And
research.
Something bird, it was a company that made
I'm doing
That's but if you decide to do concentration, I did real estate concentration.
She has helped me in
My hard
acting.
class.
Oh, yeah,
So
I do the concentration.
He brought marking as his
I was gonna do
CEO
the
or
healthcare
whatever.
one, but I told her she's not to specialize.
He said, look, he said, I
Y'all,
can't
I'm not even kidding, I went to that business law firm.
It's not, it's.
No.
Doctor, it's doable. The thing is, there's a student version.
No, so it's
And there's other versions that have. So the student version is fairly short. Like the reason she got two pages, they shouldn't be.
So you just
So
started
that's one of the
Yeah. I don't even know what
They have to
happened.
register or something. Once they register, she gets a better application. And then.
He is actually like, he's.
Good luck.
Thanks.
No.
Yeah, that's
That
a good
class.
thing. I
I was just gonna do PR, so I'm like,
I don't know how the general MBA works, so I know the real estate one, and there's 3 classes. So you probably just have to
I
find
can
3
pick
to.
3 of
Yeah, because like, it shows like
He's back
healthcare,
in Atlanta
a lot
now.
of the classes, piggybacked off of.
We all went to high school together.
Public health,
So
like, US healthcare shuffled into the 670 classes. It's a giant extension
he
of
speaks
like.
fluent German. His daughter speaks.
Yeah. Game zone,
Yeah.
wing zone, whatever, pub zone, yeah.
I learned something.
Yeah, no, does he not go, he didn't go over the homework with university?
Yeah, he gave us all the answers.
Get around the world.
He's
He's there, I haven't had it.
he's awesome. He's awesome. Like I wouldn't worry about that class. No.
And then the online thing,
The hardest part was the final,
His two daughters.
final paper, but for that, I was honest, because I was like.
Put the band back together.
He basically sat down and he's got a wife. He's kind of
Well, actually, fortunate off the board instead.
you're missing it.
Wait, so did you guys ask if you could like segment?
Well, the exams are in person.
Doing good.
No, he said, wait, Jordan, didn't he say that we can't use Excel in the exams?
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, that's what I asked him before I ordered the calculator. And then he was like, yeah, you don't need to get a calculator, but if you don't, then you have to do it freehand.
Gotta get started.
So then if you do it by hand, you have to memorize the formula. Or like, at least on the calculator, we do it for you.
Started college football.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a lot of passions, and that is one of them.
I don't even know how to use a calculator at all. Right.
That's part of the hardest, like, material. We can just use.
Yeah, I don't really feel like care if it's us. I told her that I was like, every single person I have doesn't even have that. Like, we had there's a man work that and it was like, and she was like, saying how like he thinks we're all fighting. She said, no, he literally asked us, and one person, oh, yeah, so like,
So you got a passion there. You know a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
Aaron literally said that he spent an hour on the second quiz. And I got a 30. And I was doing good in class.
So like, let's say provide.
Yeah, but like I was good at we didn't learn consumption. And then on the second, and it's like the difference between like you make $62,000 this year, but you're making $40,000 next year with 12% interest rate, but you want to set aside X amount of money and whatever, and then all of a sudden you're being loaned $20,000. I'm like, where did this even come from? Like that was the answer. Was like, I don't even know.
Is it in the textbook?
No, there's no math in the first chapter of the textbook. Right, I'm gonna do the second quiz tomorrow. Oh yeah, that took me like not long. It only has to be a pick. Yeah, and you just pick 4 different places.
Cowboys, that's pretty hard. I mean, basically, once we get into December,
30 minutes.
It's always a good start.
Me too. That's what me and Matt were saying. And then like, okay, in the questions on the questions chapter, Matt's like, I have no idea if I'm supposed to be doing future value or present value. It'll be like, what is the present value? 118,000 is the interest rate. Blah 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 blah. But then it's like, this is the present value.
all right, let's go ahead and pick up again. We'll go for a little while. Then we're going to talk about teamwork and our projects I'm super excited about. I hope you will be too. I think you will be. But we're going to talk maybe for 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. We'll just see how this goes with something called portfolio analysis. And again, this is in this chapter somewhat oddly, but it's really kind of this idea of charting growth, charting progress or direction for the company. So that's kind of why it's in here. But it's a really deep concept, and you're familiar with it already. If you've had a Principles of Marketing class, which you probably have, you will remember some of this. So this won't be completely new or whatever to you, but it's actually much, much deeper of a topic than what you often learn in Principles. So when we talk about portfolios and we talk about arranging products, oftentimes we use a chart or a series of charts to help us do that. And when we think about how strong a product is or a service is in our company, we often think of it in 2 or 3 different dimensions. One of which would be how attractive is the product category. So when we have a product category, I've got a couple examples here. I've got Apple, and this is, I don't know when I did this or what I was thinking, I call it an iWatch. It's an Apple Watch though. For some reason, I don't know why I did that, but when we talk about the attractiveness of a market, and oftentimes when we look at an attractive market, it's a market that's growing. It's a market that has new customers all the time, it's dynamic. Maybe an attractive market might not have a lot of competitors in it. There are other issues too, but generally speaking, a lot of textbooks and people will look at like how rapidly sales are taking place and where we are in that process. And so in this illustration, we have the Apple Watch. Again, I don't know what I was thinking. Anyways, which is probably, if you look at a product life cycle, so that's what this curve is called, a product life cycle curve. You look at sales or market demand over time. And early stages, which again, you're probably familiar with, the introduction and growth stages, happen. But the digital watch space that the Apple Watch is in is probably in the late growth stage, maybe even in the maturity stage by now, because of how long it's been, and also its penetration in the marketplace and some things like that. Simultaneously, Apple has their Macintosh desktop computers still. You know, back in the 80s, it was developed, an amazingly important product. But this product is pretty far down here. So, you kind of think about, like, if you want to get into a new line of products, or if you want to offer products in the marketplace, oftentimes we look for products that are in these early stages of the life cycle, because we're going to have that product around for a long time. We're going to make a lot of money off that product. Products that are in the latter stages are probably less attractive to us. However, products that are in the latter stages earn us more money. They're more profitable, and their sales are much higher. So we make more money in revenue off of products here, but these are awfully exciting to have in our portfolio of products. So think about that in terms of like where the product is, the product life cycle as one dimension. Second dimension you might look at would be how competitive is our position in the marketplace or among the industry leaders? Do we share a high market share or not? So while Apple was a pioneer in desktop computing and controlled a lot of market in the early days, nowadays their market share in that product category is minute. It was incredibly small, right? In terms of, like, if you look at, now I'm not talking necessarily about laptops and tablets, but desktops, they're a minor player at best in the desktop product market space. Now, Apple Watches, on the other hand, is a totally different story. They're a category leader. They've got a strong lead, a strong market share. They dominate that market, or for that product category. They dominate that product category. So both of these products have had a lot of pros, and we look at them, and when we start looking at a company and how they're going to grow and what directions they're going to go in, a lot of times what we do is we look at their collection of products as a portfolio. So I know some of you folks are finance focused, right? Finance majors, maybe. We get into a period here in the class, and we'll hopefully have time to talk about it more later in the semester. In marketing, what we often do is take a product and we view it as a cash flow or an investment. So in other words, I've got a product, I put a ton of money into developing it, I launched it, it's launched, I've invested a lot of money into this. Now I'm getting a return based on cash flow from sales. So I need to predict and I need to understand what that cash flow is going to look like so that I can justify this investment to begin with. I have a rate of return I need to get. I have a profit margin I need to get, right, in order to make this investment make sense. So in a lot of ways, when we think about a portfolio of products, think about it in like personal finance. Like you have a portfolio of stock investments and CDs and bonds and things like that. They all have different rates of return. You've put money into every single one of them. They also carry various levels of risk. Products that are in this stage, where it says next, tend to be incredibly risky. Plus, we have to put a lot of money into acquiring them. Products that are up here, they're not risky at all. I mean, Apple knows to the dollar how much they're going to sell and how much revenue they're going to make from their Macs every year, because it's been so far into the product life cycle. There's no surprises. There's no uncertainty. When you talk about risk, you're talking about uncertainty. There's none in this product. Any products you offer here are going to be super risky. We don't know what's going to happen with them. So a portfolio, a personal portfolio, you want to, balance out your risk, right? You're thinking about betas and all those fun financial concepts. And, you want a return that you're happy with a risk tolerance you can handle. Similarly, when we talk about products, we talk about them kind of in the same nature, in the sense that we want products that are going to produce results for us with a tempered balance of risk. If we have all these products that are kind of down here, they're going to be a lot riskier. They have a lot more opportunity for failure and for going out of business, or products failing in general if they're down there. Portfolio A is kind of like a very non-risky type of a grouping of products. The problem that we face is that eventually the products at the top of the curve are going to go away. They're going to become obsolete. So what we would call them today are cash cows. Do you remember the cash cow phrase? Anybody from Boston Consulting Group? Cash cows? Everybody who's had that remembers that usually. Those are cash cows. It's bringing in tons of revenue. And in fact, we need those products because they help pay our fixed costs in the business, and they help pay for other investments. We can take all the money we're making from these and put it into new projects. That's kind of the goal. Problem is, if you don't have any new projects, where will your future growth come from? That's like one of the big questions when we start talking about portfolio analysis. Bless you. Here, you have a more, what we would call a more balanced portfolio, like a balance of investments. You have some things that are riskier, but have more upside potential. Some things that are more stable, and these more stable things are going to pay for new investments that we make. That would be the goal. That would be kind of what we would want to do. So when we do portfolio analysis, when we talk about this in marketing, we're talking about this balance of products and cash flows that are a result of the products and services that we offer. We often, the textbooks use this illustration here. You don't want to overweight yourself with too many products that are too far along simultaneously. If you were to only have products that you think will produce a lot of revenue in the future, then that may be a challenge. Now, there are companies that have both scenarios. There are companies that only have cash cows in their portfolio, and they get rid of them from time to time. There are some companies, all they do is start new products and then either sell them off, or once they get bored with them, they start something new. So they're, depending on, again, it's kind of like, I mentioned that innovation orientation concept earlier, but a little bit like that. Companies that have lots of products here are very innovative, and they don't mind risk. They don't mind having a lot of risk in their product portfolio. Because again, products that are here, they may not go, we always draw the curve going up. But a product that fails, the curve goes down. So we never draw that curve. Isn't that funny? We really don't. We never draw the product that fails. We only draw the line going up, assuming that all products succeed. That's silly. That's ludicrous to think, right? No, of course they don't all succeed. And if it's gonna fail, if the product's gonna fail, it's gonna be down here somewhere, right? Okay, so let me just do this. Let me move up to this thing here. So this is kind of where we get this idea of the Boston Consulting Group growth share matrix. may be something that you've seen before, but some other type of matrix that expresses this idea of category attractiveness, which we saw first, and market competitiveness or industry competitiveness in the same space. So you'll have two axes here, and this can be expressed in a lot of different ways. That's why this comment's here. But we have market growth rate. Remember, market's going up, growth rate's going to be positive, and it's going to be high, like 5, 10, 15, 20%. Once the market slows down, that growth rate is going to slow down to eventually zero. We're right at the top of the product life cycle. It curves, you're in the maturity stage, growth is zero. And then it starts to go down, so you experience negative growth, right? So it goes from introduction to growth to maturity. Right here, this is the maturity stage. This area right here, this is maturity in terms of growth. And then as the product life cycle declines, it goes negative. So reading this side, think of this as a product life cycle chart. Think about the introduction stage is going to be up here, and then it's slowly going to go through growth, and then it's going to go through maturity, and then it's going to go through decline. Right? That's how that works. So now down below here, we have the relative strength of your product in the industry. So, Apple Watch was 60% of the market. Google's influence on the internet is 90%. Apple's Mac share of the desktop market was 6%. Obviously, the more power or strength of the market, more of the market you control, the better the position you're going to be. The more ability you're going to have to make money, the more profitable the product will be, the safer the product will be, and so forth. So that's where this whole matrix comes into play. And if you did, again, this is called the BCG growth share matrix. There are other versions of this. It's not the only one. There are lots of other ones. But if you remember these terms, a dog is a product where you have low share and low market growth. Remember that? And those are the types of products that are towards the end of their life cycle. Sometimes you begin to harvest them. You are not inclined to put money into them, for instance, things like that. The question marks tend to be those products that are in the early stages of the product life cycle, but you just don't know whether they're going to succeed. You don't know if you can gain enough market share to make them a good, viable moneymaker for you. They're in the early stage of the growth phase usually, something like that. So question marks. Stars, those are high profit products in the mid to late stages of the growth stage typically. And then we have our cash cows down here, the ones that produce a lot of income and money for us. These cash cows help us pay for the question marks and help us move the question marks to become stars. So it's kind of, this model actually works well, but where I want you to think about this is this collection of risk and reward as you would a portfolio of investments. Because each product, again, it's an investment. The companies put money into it, and now they're receiving a cash flow from it. So why wouldn't we think of that as an investment? Maybe not as clean as a contract or something like that, but it's still kind of fundamentally the same type of thing. If you have an underperforming investment, you look to get rid of it, right? Or replace it with something that performs better. Why wouldn't we do the same thing type here? Sometimes we hold on to products that are underperforming just for sentiment, or it's because we do. That sometimes is the cause for companies to go into those stalls like we were talking about before. So moving this, using some strategy, thinking about, that evolution of the product life cycle over time, how that works. Our goals, as you can as I mentioned here, is you want to push and move products into these better categories. So if you have this question mark, your goal is to gain market share. at that point in time. It's already in a very good growing industry or product category. Now we want to increase our market share to the best of our ability. Here, if we're already a star, we have the market share that we feel is suitable. However, time suggests and history suggests that the growth of the product category is going to slow. It's just going to. We're going to go up into the top of the curve, which means not anything that we're doing, it's going to come down. Okay, other things that we want to do, we want to try to, again, hold on and grow and maintain. In this case, A, we want to maintain share. C, we want to grow share if we can. And then when we get into this B category, you know, and again, you never go up. I mean, products don't go up. They can't. I mean, it's well, I guess in the early stages they do, but this B, all we're going to do is have fewer and fewer and fewer people available to buy our product. The market is getting exhausted. It's getting emptied out. You know, by the end of the product life cycle, there's no one else to buy your product. That's why that's why product, you know, so we have to do something. We're probably going to harvest it. We're probably going to start not putting money into that product anymore. Okay, and that's kind of the management process that you kind of go through. There's an example here. I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit. This is from years ago, but it still is the application of this concept. The Yum Brands with their restaurant combination of KFC, Taco Bell, Long John Silver's, Pizza Hut, A&W Root Beer, experienced strong revenues, profit margins that would reflect an upward trend from 13 to 15%. But at some point, a company realizes that there are products in their product category that are not as great of an investment as they would like. They're not getting the return they want from them. Maybe they're reading the tea leaves and they're seeing that they're getting squeezed out by competitors or something. Maybe the market's not growing. Like the growth rate, the opportunity for growth for A&W in that market, in that space for that type of company, that type of food restaurant is low. It's not very big. It never will be very big. It wasn't very big. So if you're like looking at investments, do you want an investment in a high growth area or a low growth area? Well, a high growth area. So their decision, kind of at a period of time there was to double down on their three big brands, move internationally with them, and divest their interests in A&W and Long John Silver's. So in other words, get rid of these cash flows and use the money they save from those cash flows to reinvest their three big brands internationally and with other things. Right? It freed up cash. It freed up money for them to be able to do other things, to find other investments that would be more profitable. Does that make sense? So just kind of think about like how you manage products, how you manage these brands, and how they play out in your portfolio of things that you do. Okay, I want to pause. I want to talk about the project. There's a little bit more here. When you read the chapter, I'm just going to kind of do this. When you read the chapter will talk about this exact same concept. It'll show you this picture right here, which deals with market attractiveness and business strength. So the same dynamics. Peter Drucker, who's a marketing professor and really a thought leader for many, many, many decades, came up with 7 different types of products. We had cash cows and stars and all that with the BCG growth share matrix. Well, his envision for this was 7 different types of products. Tomorrow's breadwinners, today's breadwinners, development sleepers, ego trips, failures, and then yesterday's breadwinners. There's 7 in all. So if you have an opportunity to read that in the text, that's good. That's good stuff to know. But it dovetails what we've talked about already today, the management of products. Okay? All right, so this is a fun topic. There's a ton of strategy where you can play like the what if games. What if we sold off this brand? What if we did this? What if we added a product? How would that change our portfolio? How would that change our exposure to risk? Those are all valid questions that we would ask. When we talk about Starbucks, they don't have a lot of products. You could group their products into some categories, but they don't have a lot of categories. There are not a lot of categories that they offer. What if they started adding some of these new ventures? What would they look like in their portfolio? Apple is a company that carries very, very few products. Very few. I mean, they don't have very many product categories there. They just don't. One of the best, most profitable companies out there, though. And think of that there's actually an article that's available. It wouldn't be a bad idea to take a look at it. We really haven't had a chance to look at it tonight. There's two articles. One is Cannibalize Your Own Products. The other one is, with just 8 words, Steve Jobs explained the best decision he ever made. And the decision in this was in 2008. This deal here is only started in 2008. Isn't that crazy? 2008, Steve Jobs and Apple decided to introduce the iPhone, the phone, knowing full well that it would completely decimate and eliminate sales of the iPod. The iPod was by far their best-selling product. Millions and millions of iPods were sold every year. They introduced this, and within 2 or 3 years, iPod sales, 0. None. So tell me how much guts it takes to take your #1 best-selling product of all time, worldwide, and cannibalize it purposefully. If this failed, Apple's out of business, right, in 2008. That takes some guts, but it's managing your portfolio of products. It's this whole idea of sacrificing one line for another. If this is the future, then they made a great, brilliant decision. If the iPod was the future and this was a failure, boy, that's a lot of risk, isn't it? That's a gutsy call right there, but that article it's a one-pager. It's easy to read. You should take a look at it if you have an opportunity to do so. All right, any questions? I know I've talked a lot. Next week we'll do some more discussion. We'll be able to jump into this a little bit more. Let me just talk a little bit, if we can. I'll just redirect this to do class maintenance as far as the project goes. Super excited about the project. You probably read a little bit about the project. Maybe you looked into it a little bit, maybe not. Today, I created teams. I used Microsoft Teams to create teams. They're randomly assigned. You have 7 groups, 7 teams. I think there's 4 folks to a team. Okay, have you seen your teams, or have you looked into it at all, or anything like that? Okay, some of you have, some of you haven't. I can post a listing of the teams. It's no problem. I don't mind doing that. I don't think anyone else would mind either. But at the same time, if you know who's in your team, we might be able to get you all together in those tonight before we leave. And we'll have this here for you if you want to check on that. Okay, but as we do the team, I just wanted to kind of explain and walk through the project a little bit. All right, so basically the idea of this project is what we should do. Each team should adopt a product category and a company. Examine that, do an analysis of those, also the markets that they serve, and then by the end of the term, identify a product concept that could be newly introduced for that company that you choose. All right, so I better read this. I better look at this a little quick. I know there are a lot of words. Sorry about that. This PowerPoint's available to you as well. It should be under the project section in Moodle. But it's loosely formatted off of a concept of a plan. You can do business plans, marketing plans for units, for companies, but you also do a product level plan. So this is the framework of a product level marketing plan. It's not all the pieces, but it's good for what we do in this class. And it'll be a good, fun, exciting thing for you guys to do. So as we get going, first and foremost, and it'd be good to do this week as a group, we want to identify, each group needs to identify a product category that you want to do your project in. You don't want the product kind of typo too. You don't want that product category to be too broad or too narrow, but something you're probably interested in, something that you can find a lot of information on if available. And you want to try to narrow this down to something fairly reasonable. If I were to say athletic apparel is my product category, that's going to be way too broad. It's not going to work for you because there's too many products in that product category. If you said athletic shoes in athletic apparel, and then you narrowed it down a little further and picked like a type of shoe or something like that, that might work, something along those lines. But there's going to need to be a discussion that you have with your group. You want to think about a product category, group of products that go together that an industry would serve. Okay, that's kind of one of the things that you want to do. It can be in any types of categories. It's up to you. I do ask that you let me know what you're thinking and what you decide. If I see any red flags or if I see any concerns, I'll definitely let you know so that we can work it out and and you can decide kind of what you want to do from there. Once you think about that product category, we want to think about a company that you will then adopt as your focal company for the project. Imagine you're an employee, you're a marketing CMO or manager or whatever for that company. And so you've got a company that operates, generally speaking, in that product category. Doesn't have to be in the exact product space, but maybe you're an apparel company and maybe you're looking at athletic shoes. That'd be okay, because athletic shoes are a type of apparel. Maybe your company doesn't currently do athletic shoes. That's okay. There's some flexibility there. So in other words, your company doesn't necessarily need to offer the product now, but it needs to be a company that could reasonably offer a product. If you're a skincare company and you do lotions, but you don't have a sunscreen or a sun care product, sun care could be your product category. L'Oreal or whoever it is, I don't know what they offer, but could be the focal company, and I could see that company developing and delivering a sun care product, because it kind of makes sense, right? So think in those terms, all right? Again, you don't want a company that's too enormous. If you were to say pick Procter & Gamble, that would be a disaster, because they're so huge. You're going to find a department or an SBU in P&G, and then it's going to be it may be difficult. That's all I'm saying. You need to narrow it down to at least the strategic business unit that focuses on the product that you can offer. Okay, so don't make it too big, don't make it too small. At the end of the day, you need to be able to find information about your company. Publicly traded companies have lots of information, but others do too. And that's a big step, okay? Step one. You work on that tonight, over the week. Please let me know what you're thinking. I'm happy to help. I'm happy to coordinate with you. Whatever you want to do, happy to do, okay? All right? Now, as we progress through this process, you can kind of see this. Stage one is something you probably want to think of fairly soon. Stage one, we'll spend an entire week devoted to each of the 4 stages. Okay, so stage one, what we're dealing with is doing an environmental scale and an analysis of the trends that are happening in the business environment specifically for that product category. Right? So we can do SWOT analyses, we can do, again, the environmental trend analysis, situational analysis. There are lots of different tools we can do. But we have to identify and be very clear about understanding the environment that specific product category is dealing with. Okay, simultaneously, we want to think of, and I know there's a lot of words up here, sorry I couldn't do it cleanly, but this is all on some of those documents you have under the project. But part of this too is we want to understand the generic market for this product category space. Now, I'm not talking about who buys a specific product. What I'm talking about is the generic makeup of the typical customer who will buy in that product category. It's a category level look at this point in time in the project. This will be step number one, stage number one. You do not have an idea at this point what your product concept is going to be. You don't need to. You don't come to me and say, hey, we're going to do a pair of glasses that take pictures and integrate with your phone. What product category should we be in? No. That's step 3. Stage 3 is coming up with a product idea. I don't want to have any idea or inclination of what your product's going to be until stage 3. It's really hard to resist that temptation. I know it is. But what we're doing is we're identifying product category and the market now. We're describing that. That's step number 1. I'm not going to go through all these different steps because there are too many words to worry about. Step number 2, and we're tired, right? And it's not quite time yet. Got 2 minutes? No, I fell for that last week. No, all right, so anyways, stage number 2, what we're going to do is a deep internal evaluation of the firm you choose, right? So we want to know what their strengths, what their weaknesses are. We want to know what their core competencies are. We want to know what their brand strength is. We want to know what makes them unique, why this company is who they are. We want to know their history. We want to know their product category, their product array, like their portfolio. Like we just did product portfolios. We need to know the product portfolio for your company. We need to know, because think about this. This new product that you're going to envision is going to go onto that chart, onto their chart, right? Where's it going to go? Why should it go there? You know, so in other words, we need to know everything we can about this company and what their growth strategy is, what they've done in the past, where they're looking to expand, all that type of stuff. Okay, step number 2. Stage number 3. Now we actually build the product. Okay, so when you build a product concept, 3 things have to happen. 1, the market has to have a need. There has to be a need in the market. So you look at that, you look at the market, generic market at stage number 1, right? Number 2 is the company has to have the capacity, within reason, to produce this product. It has to make sense for them to produce it anyways, right? It has to fit into what they're doing. If it doesn't, then the product's never going to work. Number 3, it has to fit into the competitive domain. So in other words, it can't be a product that's identical to what somebody else already does out there. Another company already does that product. Maybe you could copy them, but boy, that's not very fun. I don't know. Right, so it has to, these elements before in stages 1 and 2 give you information to justify the product that you create in stage number 3. That's why you really can't come up with a product first and it really be a very good product. It's just really hard to think that through logically. Okay, step number 4, so this is all about product development, what we'll do with the product stuff. Stage number 4 deals with commercializing the product concept, like how will you bring the product to market? How will you communicate it? And how will it be distributed? Those 2 things. You hit all 4 P's in this project. It's a fun project. This is step number 4. Again, those are things that you can do. The final class, December 5th. Jordan, I know you're not going to be here. Maybe, hopefully, everyone else will be here. Unless you're going to Peru, I hope you're here. That's a very weak excuse, though. I'll tell you that right now. But anyways, and I know you have some travels and things to do, but the December 5th class, each of your groups will come up and give a 10, 15-minute description of your product. Okay, so it's one of these deals where you're able to summarize the whole thing, everything that you're doing,
we have food, we have a good time. It's like, it's not a Shark Tank type thing, but it's fun because we all have investment dollars. And at the very end, everybody invests in the different projects, and whoever's project gets the most gets a little prize. So yeah, hold out for that because it's not big, trust me, but it's fun. It's a good conclusion to a great term, and that's the thing that we do there. We will have opportunities throughout the semester to evaluate teammate performance, or not performance, but I do want to know if there are challenges and hiccups along the way. I do want to, from a team perspective. I know that the scores you get on a team project are shared by the team. Everybody gets the score, and so there's always, every once in a while there's an issue here and there where we have to have a conversation about team member performance and things like that. It doesn't happen often, it's very rare. But please know that there's processes in place to accommodate that. Also, at every step of the way, I'm available to meet with your team one-on-one or in any capacity in the class or out of the class on Teams, on Zoom, or anything like that. So don't feel like you have to just come up with this stuff and without any guidance. I'd be happy to, share ideas with you. And I generally don't like to proofread work before you turn it in. That ain't fun. But I'll definitely help you with ideas and definitely help you with the structure of whatever you're working on, and go from there. And yeah. Any questions? Questions? Come on, any questions?
Well, is it the December 5th class? Because on the thing it says due December 13th.
Yeah, so stage. It's an oddity. We meet last December 5th. The semester ends the 13th. So what I typically do is have the meeting and all on. We have our last meeting, but the work for that stage isn't due till, and that's like exam week, but we're not going to meet during exam week.
Well, I leave the 7th, so I'll be here.
It's an oddity. It's just this weird thing that the semester, and it's actually important for the online class because they use that extra work week to do work and finish stuff up, even though we're not meeting physically again, the class still goes on. So, and if we need to adjust those a little bit, we will here and there. Good question. What else? Grace? No? Austin, doing good? Doing good? Yeah? Carlos, doing all right? Keeping it in the court? Do you guys have a fall schedule?
Yeah, we do.
ITAs?
Yeah.
Maybe. See how that goes. Okay, all right. I'll let you guys go. If you want to meet with your groups, meet. You've got 10 minutes before class gets out. Or leave, or whatever. I do have a list here of the classes, of groups, if you need to see that.
I want to meet with you.
I wasn't sure if you could or not.
Yeah, there's like a way you gotta go to manage members or whatever, and it shows you the owner, and you gotta do the drop-down.
I will make this document available. It just lists everybody.
Where's the majority of Team 5?
Girl.
You're Team 5? Okay.
And I just numbered them 1 through 7. If you want to change your team name, do it. We'll make it a different name if you want to, other than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
How do you want to figure out who's coming?
No, I'm going to figure out how to
Hey, Ryan. So it's you, Carlos,
when I saw the, I'm not sure.
I don't know where the others are.
was last year, last class.
Yeah, no, because when I saw the email, I only saw there was 2 of us. It said 2 members, and I saw your message, I guess it's just you and me then. But did that work? Yeah, no, that's perfect. All right, that gives me a little bit more relaxed. So he said it should be teams of 4.